If you show this image to a sensible, functioning human being, they will likely say, "What the hell is that?" and go on with their day. However, if you show this to a Nintendo fan while wearing a PlayStation shirt, then they will probably summon the Master Sword and cut you down like grass in a Zelda game. This is the Nintendo Virtual Boy, Nintendo's forgotten, abandoned child that they threw in a ditch by the side of the road on the way home from the hospital after it was born. I seriously don't know what kind of drugs they were on when they thought up this abomination of a console. The story of the Virtual Boy is one of failure and stupid decisions, so let's take a look at and rate the console out of 10. What was the Virtual Boy? Well, for starters, it was a failure. The Virtual Boy was a VR-type set of goggles with a stand and a controller. There's a debate over whether the Virtual Boy is a handheld or a home console, and while I think that it is technically a handheld, I also think it isn't. You aren't exactly playing this on the bus. The Virtual Boy was Nintendo's shot at virtual reality, yes, in 1995, and while I wouldn't necessarily describe it as VR, I would definitely say Nintendo was trying to make a revolutionary 3D console, again, yes, in 1995. To cut costs, Nintendo decided to only allow it to display the colors red and black, so it was a mistake and disabled. The idea for the Virtual Boy first came to Gunpei Yokoi, one of the most legendary Nintendo employees. This man made the Game & Watch, invented the D-pad, designed the Game Boy, and produced Metroid and Kid Icarus, and was the creator of Nintendo's fun with lesser hardware capabilities principle, so calling him legendary is an understatement. He had a vision for a technologically advanced console with the latest 3D tech, stereoscopic and graphical, that would give the effect of depth. His original idea also saw the Virtual as a portable headset, which was leagues different from the tabletop system that we got. I would also like to note that his picture of the Virtual Boy involved a color screen, which, as we know, did not end up happening in the final model. They also decided to use a less powerful processor, again to cut costs, which frustrated Yokoi even more. This eliminated the Virtual Boy's ability to display 3D graphics, which the PS1 and the Sega Saturn displayed for breakfast. Sure, it could display kind of 3D graphics, like Super Nintendo Star Fox graphics, but that does not really count. Are you really going to choose this over the PS1, which could do fully 3D graphics, in color, and on your TV? Another one of the key features that they obviously removed from the Virtual Boy's design was the portability and use as a headset. At this point, the Virtual Boy was just a useless piece of garbage that would be better used as a doorstop. Gunpei begged Nintendo to let him revert the changes and make the Virtual Boy actually somewhat usable, but they would not budge. Instead, they forced him to complete it before the holiday season of 1995 to compete with the original PlayStation, which would launch on September 9th, 1995 in North America, and to fill in for the N64, which was taking much longer than expected. Nintendo showcased the Virtual Boy at E3 1995, although people weren't very impressed. The red and black screen hurt people's eyes, and besides, it was overshadowed by the presentation of the N64 and Sega's surprise launch of the Saturn in North America. That totally worked out for Sega. Despite this, Nintendo said, "F*** your eyes," and released the console in July of 1995 in Japan, with the launch titles Mario Tennis, which was the packing game, Tellur Boxer, Galactic Pinball, and Red Alarm. Much to Nintendo's surprise, the Virtual Boy was subject to a lot of negativity in Japan after launching. Critics and casual gamers alike were not pleased with the red and black display, as it caused eye strain, nausea, and headaches. They were also very disappointed in the fact that you had to lean into the headset and couldn't move to a more comfortable position while playing, which led to back and neck pain. I don't know about you, but I am not a huge fan of being in physical pain while playing Nestor's Funky Bowling. People also despised the fact that this had the worst elements of both handheld and home console. You couldn't play it on a TV, and you couldn't take it on the go. Along with this, it lacked the thing video game consoles are made for, games. Even the few games it had were the definition of boring. I may not have a Virtual Boy, but with a little help from piracy and emulation, I can play the games, unfortunately. While many people hated it with every ounce of blood in their body, many people just didn't give a shit. The ads were either excruciatingly plain or excruciatingly weird. One even involved someone running away from a Virtual Boy, which is shockingly accurate. Most people also saw the Virtual Boy as a mere gimmick, which discouraged them from picking one up. All of this hatred towards the Virtual Boy made Nintendo panic when they released the Virtual Boy in North America. They expected it to be universally loved and revered as a huge leap forward in video game technology, and oh boy were they wrong. While the Virtual Boy sold a meager 630,000 units in Japan, it sold an absolutely abysmal 130,000 units in North America, meaning it sold less than the Atari Lynx. Because of the poor sales in Japan, Nintendo decided to focus more on advertisements in Freedom Land. One of the most notorious of these ads featured whatever the hell this is. When the Virtual Boy ultimately flopped harder than the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, Nintendo went the "nobody gets me" route. They thought the only reason the Virtual Boy did horrendous on the shelves was because it was too advanced for its time and nobody understood it. To be fair, you probably have to actually play one in person to understand the 3D effect. That's just one redeeming quality. When compared to the wealth of other problems, it's no wonder absolutely no one wanted this thing. After it received much of the same reaction in America as it did in Japan, except worse, Nintendo discontinued it only a year after launch, making it one of the shortest-lived consoles in history. The design of the Virtual Boy is definitely something to scoff at. The headset itself looks pretty solid, but the rest of the thing looks absolutely hideous. The stand looks flimsy as all hell and looks unfinished. Not only did Nintendo refuse to make it a strap-on headset that you could stand up while wearing, but they also made the stand an abhorrent piece of junk. This thing looks like you could touch it with your pinky finger with the force of 1 Newton, and it would fall over faster than you could say anti-disestablishmentarianism. The controller design isn't great either. It looks decently comfortable to use, but leaves a lot to be desired. It looks evil. The dual D-pads are better than the PS1's single D-pad, but they aren't as good as joysticks. I'm also not a huge fan of the fact that the start and select buttons are the same size as the face buttons. Instead of having only 2 face buttons, I think it would have been better to put the start and select buttons in the middle of the controller and repurpose the pre-existing start and select into X and Y buttons. Another thing I dislike about the controller's design is the fact that you have to put the batteries into the controller. 6 AA batteries, to be precise. It would have made much more sense to put the batteries in the actual system, but whatever. The shoulder buttons on the Virtual Boy's controller are nice, but every controller at the time had one, so it's not something to celebrate. The Virtual Boy is also infamous for its lackluster library of games. Only 22 games released on it, with a scant 14 releasing in the USA. For reference, there was 2,584 games released on the Wii and a whopping 12,519 games on the Switch. This is partially because Nintendo barely gave the Virtual Boy's development kit to anyone besides the studios they own, because they wanted to control the quality of the games, which is definitely a very Nintendo thing to do. And it's not like they were good games. Most of the library consists of 5 out of 10 games you don't actually want to play, with a select few being actually good. Mario Tennis is definitely the highlight of the Virtual Boy's library, although it is a very plain tennis game. The 3D-ish movement is a huge upgrade from the entirely 2D sports games of the 80s and early 90s. It's pretty standard, but works. Red Alarm is kind of cool for a few seconds, but it's just an average third-person space shooter, which was pretty common at the time. It's basically just a poor man's Star Fox, just like the Virtual Boy is a poor man's VR headset. The line graphics are pretty annoying. They basically make everything look the same. You can try this game if you want, but it's not like you're missing anything if you don't. Galactic Pinball is just what you'd expect from a game called Galactic Pinball, a pretty generic pinball game, but in space. I can't say it's better than pinball on the NES, and its lack of color takes away the potential for any cool visuals it could have had. And now, Nestor's Funky Bowling. It has Nestor in it. If that's not an instant 10 out of 10, I don't know what is. I would never do my boy Nestor dirty by rating this game lowly. In all seriousness, it's an ugly bowling game from the 90s with terrible physics. Not much to say, except it sucks. Tellero Boxer, one of the Virtual Boy's launch titles, is literally just every boxing game at the time, but now with robots. Whenever I play it, I find myself mashing buttons to win. I guess it's kind of fun the first time you play it, but gets boring real quick. And those are all the Virtual Boy games I could play before I wanted to gouge my eyes out. What's your favorite Virtual Boy game? Overall, the Virtual Boy is one of the worst video game consoles of all time, both commercially and how good it was, especially for Nintendo standards. Some people like to say that the Virtual Boy was actually a good console. It seems the only thing that it's good at is making me want to jump off a bridge. I would rate it a 2 out of 10.